I'm sure that we'll have a couple other people pop in as we go, and just wanted to kind of go ahead and get us started with this. So good afternoon. Thank you for taking some time this afternoon to listen to this webinar. Just for a little context of what we're doing, I'm sure some of you all have over the last few weeks and probably through the summer maybe gotten some emails or received some communication from eLearning Resource Center about working on some ways to kind of institutionally better manage the size of the courses in Blackboard. And so this is kind of one of our first attempts at making a broader effort to address that. So we've sent some individual emails to people to work on some things, and I've been doing some things that way. But now we're kind of also offering this series of webinars to kind of work on this a little bit better and a little bit more. And then and we'll have some others throughout the semester to also help address this. But the first one that we're doing today is on course copying, what you want to copy, what you want to avoid copying. We'll probably also go a little bit into import and export features in Blackboard and how you can use that as an alternative to course copying, and some of the different settings and things. And we'll try to spend some time going through what the settings mean on the course copy, but also what things you might need to look for after you've done a course copy to kind of clean up your course a little bit more as a result of some of those things that we see in a course copy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you here. I'm going to just work from one of our training development shells, and I'll take you through the steps to start off of where to find the course copy tool if you're not familiar with that, and then we'll kind of go through each of the different settings and what that means and what's supposed to happen during a course copy, and where to look for things if you can't find things when the course copy is done. And then kind of get into some of the other things, and we'll take some time in between there to answer any questions that you might have. I'm sure most of you are at least a little bit familiar with course copies. You've either put in a school due to have them done before, or you've attempted to do them yourself. So hopefully none of this will be too unfamiliar for you, but maybe you can get a few things out of it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so we should all see, you should all see a course over here that says blogs, wikis, journals in the online environment, so you can get an idea of this is the course we're going to be working from for demonstrating this process. So to start off, if you're not familiar with where you find the course copy tool, just a couple of ground rules for doing a course copy. So you start off, of course, by going into the course that you want to copy into an existing course. You're only going to have permission to copy courses that you either have instructor access to or that you have instructor access to, and you can only you can only copy a course into another course that you also have access to. So a lot of we have some online lead faculty or administrative department heads that'll ask for access to a lot of courses so they can do this process for them. That's something that you want to make sure you have in place before you do a course copy, is that whoever needs to do the copying has the appropriate instructor access to do that. Otherwise, they won't be able to access the tool. So to start off, to find the course copy tool is from within your course, this course management tool menu down here. We should all be pretty familiar with this if we teach classes. You're going to select the packages and utilities menu item down here, and you're going to select the course copy item. And it should take you to a page that looks like this. And we'll take a few minutes to walk through the different settings on this page and kind of explain what those are a little bit. The first thing you see up here is just going to be select copy type. There's a drop-down menu here, but you will also notice that you only have one available option from that course menu. So you're going to choose the only option you have, which is copy course materials into an existing course. And that's because IT typically develops, and they create our Blackboard shells before the semester starts. So we're not creating any new courses. We're creating or copying into courses that we already have access to. So in this destination course ID box, you're going to enter the full course ID of the course that you need to copy into. So that's going to include the semester 2019 FA. It's going to include the acronym or the letters for the course, and including the section number for it. So in my case, I'm going to be copying into one of my development shells, and so the name of it is just dev.hatcher. But if you were copying into one of your curriculum courses, it might look something like 2019 FA sci.150.0001 or something along those lines, depending on the type of course that you're teaching. You're just going to want to make sure you input the entire course ID. So scrolling on down a little bit further, this is where you see the different settings and options that you have for copying your course. Typically what we advise you to do, and that what you hear a lot when you call, is to probably just select all of the content. But before you do that, we'll kind of go through and explain what each of these items are and what you should expect as you are doing the course copy. So these items up here, the ones that say content areas, these are all course menu items that you have that are on your course menu that have been added and are maybe and if you've added any additional ones like maybe a homework submission area or things like that, all of these content areas are going to be course menu items that'll match the content areas that you have on your course menu. So if that, in this case, it's getting started, faculty information area, the lessons area, course resources, and things like that. So anything that you add specifically to your course menu as a content area that has information in it is going to copy into your course. The next thing that you see here is the adaptive release rules for content. You've all probably been, or at least are a little bit familiar with the adaptive release rule. We use it to set up adaptive release on course entry quizzes and in online and hybrid courses. You may use it for other things. This will allow you to copy adaptive release rules on certain types of content in the course. Announcements, typically announcements when you do a course copy, if you select this option, all of your announcements will copy over. You may or may not like that. Student support's not on this screen. That's because I'm using one of my development shells and it's not on my course menu. Alright, so the adaptive release rules for content will copy over as well. Yes, we typically don't copy student support, and that's because it's pre-populated and it'll duplicate when you do a course copy. But we'll get a lot more into that kind of as we move through it. But yeah, that's a good point. Okay. So announcements, like I said, if you choose this option, all of your announcements will be copied over. You may or may not want that to happen in your courses, but it will copy all of those over. Blogs, any communication or collaborative tools will be copied over as well. If you use the grading activity, or if you grade any of those collaborative tools like discussion boards or blogs or wikis or something like that, and you copy the grade center information, all of that will copy as well. We have a question. Yeah, if you copy over announcements that were set to email out to the course, will those immediately email out to the new course? No, they won't. But if you go in to edit those once they're copied into the new course, if you don't uncheck that option, it will email them at that point, but they don't automatically do it when you do a course copy. Okay, so the course calendar will also copy over. The important thing to notice here is because that course calendar copies, one of the things that you have to be aware of and be careful of is whether you've assigned, whether you are copying a course before you've made any changes or updates to it, because it will take all of the due dates from previous semesters with it when you do a course copy. So if you're not a person that works in advance to update all of the due dates for assignments in the course, students could be confused by seeing some old dates on that calendar. So you'll want to make sure and just be aware of that when you do the course copy, that if you don't update the assignments and things that populate on that course calendar, students may see some of those old dates in there. So, and like we were saying before, the dates on course item and tool dates don't change. And along with that, any availability for things in your course won't change either. So if you copy over announcements or assignments that are no longer available in the old course, when you copy them into the new course, they will not be available either. Okay, so the discussion board is a big one to kind of keep in your mind when you're doing a course copy. You have a couple of options here for the discussion board to include only the forums with no starter posts. You also have the option to, yes, the course entry quiz. You'll want to make sure that you don't copy that as well. Yeah, if you're using a development shell, yes, your course entry quiz, you wouldn't have a course entry quiz in that shell, and that should be pre-populated in the course that you're copying into. So, yeah, that should be fine. Okay. So discussion board forums, I would encourage you here if you are not wanting, especially if you're just copying the course to reuse for another semester, to only do a course copy that includes the forums with no starter posts. If you include the starter posts for each thread, what you're going to get in a course copy is basically an anonymous copy of every single submission that was submitted into the discussion board in the older course. And so it will, it's easier because you don't have to go through the course after doing the course copy to delete those. So I would encourage you there to choose only the forums, no starter posts. Okay. Grade Center columns and settings is a big one. You're going to want to make sure that you copy this. It'll copy any weighted columns or columns that you set up in the old course into the new course. It'll also copy the assignments and the graded activities into the new course as well. And so that's going to be one that you want to make sure, for the most part, that you check to copy that over, and you can make changes once you place it into the new course. Group settings, if you use group projects and activities in your courses, those will be copied as well. The names of the groups, if you set up any specific tool availability for the groups, like group discussion boards or group wikis or things like that. Those tool availabilities will copy, and things like that. All contacts for the course are going to be copied as well. And so your instructor information, all of our course shells when they're created have some very basic information in it. But when you do a full course copy from semester to semester, that'll be one item that you may see that you might have to clean up that menu item after the course copy, because there will be some basic contact information in all of our existing course shells. So grading rubrics that you created in your course, if you use the Blackboard rubrics tool, will also copy over. And if they're attached to any assignments, they would remain attached to those assignments when you did a course copy as well. Settings for the course, such as the availability, the banner image, things like that, those things typically our availability of our courses is managed by IT here, so we won't be able to copy or make our courses available. That's managed by IT, so that won't be a setting that you have to worry about. And another thing with regard to the banner image, you'll see the default in most of our course copies is it's set to copy the banner image. But there's actually a little bit of an issue right now where that's not working correctly, so we'll go through that a little bit more when we get to the things to look for after a course copy. And so if you use the tasks, of course, tests, surveys, and pools, and wikis are, again, one of those collaborative activities. So tests, surveys, and pools, some of you in the group may have actually received an email sometime in the last couple weeks about test surveys and pools in your courses, and how those can often get duplicated in a course copy process. And so we'll go through a little bit of how to clean that up after the course menu is done, or after a course copy is done as well. But test surveys and pools, you generally want to make sure you copy those, particularly if you reuse test questions or reuse tests from semester to semester. So that's an important one that you'll want to copy. The file attachments area down here at the bottom, the copy links and copies of the content is pretty much what you're going to want to use when you do the course copy. It'll copy the any attachments that you have in files. It'll keep it associated with content areas or with assignments that they're attached to. The other two can cause some access and error issues if they're not done. So I would tell you to stick with copy links and copies of the content when you do a course copy. And then, of course, this enrollments area down here, for your purposes, you're not going to be able to copy the enrollments, but you wouldn't really want to do that for this exercise anyway. So after you've selected the content that you want to copy, in my case, I'll just copy all of this, make sure that I'm not doing the discussion boards, and I'll tell it to just delete my announcements, because there's a lot in there and I'm probably going to want to start over. And I will tell it to submit. And what you'll see, if you've done this at all before, is that you'll get an email once the course copy has completed. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my development shell so we can see. And in your development shell, if you're watching the process work, you'll see a little blue bar that pops up across the top that tells you when it's running and then when it's complete. And you'll get an email, usually within a few seconds of when it is complete. And you'll see it in this blue bar here, and you can actually access information about the course copy and whether or not it ran into any issues or errors. in the course menu or in the course copy process. Okay. Right. So the things that you'll notice, we get a lot of help desk calls about course copies, but we have I think Emily's got the question about bulk delete. On the help desk, we get a lot of calls, particularly about what happens to content after a course copy, and people sometimes can't find things, or there was some duplication. And so what we're going to look for there, and some things to kind of keep in mind. If you have, somebody asked earlier about the student support course menu item, and this is a good example to use to explain this. If you have a course menu item that in one course that is named or has the same name as the other course that you're copying into, any course content that's in maybe the destination course or in the course that you're copying from into the destination course, it will copy into that same area. And so that's something to be aware of. And it's often why when we're doing course copies and you see things like the student support menu item, you go in there, you might see things 3 or 4 or 5 times, and it gets very long. And that's because it's duplicating the content in that student support menu item. And so in order to prevent that, when you're doing your course copy, there may be things like the student support menu item that you don't want to copy. And if you're copying, say you're teaching multiple courses of the same or different sections, multiple sections of the same course during a semester, and you're copying from one semester or one course to a different course in the fall semester, you're probably also not going to want to copy the course entry quiz course menu item, because you'll get that course entry quiz twice. If you're using a development shell, that's not as much of an issue. But anytime you have something, that's something you need to be aware of, that you're not duplicating in the course menu items. That said, if you have anything, or if you have maybe slightly changed something in the course menu title, the link to the file or the link to the course menu item, and you, instead of calling it lessons, you're now calling it lessons-assignments. The content in that lessons folder in the course where you copied from will not copy into the lessons-assignments course menu item. It'll create a new item on the course menu called lessons, and you'll have to work it that way. So those are just some kind of things to look for. A lot of the course copying, particularly as it relates to the course menu items and the location and navigating the course, is going to have a lot to do with what those course menu items are called. Okay. We've had a few questions pop up, but I see us talking a little bit about import and export, and I was going to go through some of the steps and benefits of doing that as well. Okay. So before we do the import export, I wanted to talk a little bit about things in your course menu or in your course copy that you'll want to check after you do a course copy. So one of the things that we've sent emails out about recently has been related to the size of our courses, and that's been either due to content or files in the content collection, but also in part due to tests, surveys, and pools, and the number of those that we had in our courses. And those are two big things that we've been trying to focus on and do some individual work with faculty on. So one thing to look for to do that, and we'll start with just looking at test surveys and pools. When you do a course copy from one semester to another, And I'm going to use the course entry quiz as an example for this. Because all of our hybrid and seated courses have that built into it, it's really easy to forget to clean that particular assessment out. And so what we see a lot when we go into course entry quizzes, particularly if a course has been copied multiple times, is that it might still have a course entry quiz in it from 5 or 6 years ago, and it'll be there 5 to 10 times for different semesters that the course has been taught. And so the way to look at that you can kind of identify all the tests, surveys, and pools that you have in a course to begin with is going to be go to the course management tool menu. And if you click on course tools and you just select test, surveys, and pools and the tests option, this is going to show you a list of all the tests and assessments that you have in your course. So in this particular example, I only have a few tests and they're all deployed in my course right now. But what happens often in a course copy is that over time, not just the course entry quiz, but quizzes can become duplicated, and it might just be because someone made a slight change to a test or a test question, and they resaved it and they made a new test, or maybe just various years of inheriting a course through different instructors. Tests get duplicated, and what we'll see is a large number of tests that have that are not currently being used in the course. And so just to kind of explain what this page looks like a little bit, all of these here are the lists of the tests. And then the second column is indicating to you whether or not that test is deployed. And like I said, all the tests in this course are deployed at the moment. But if it were not, you would see, this would all say no. So these are not deployed, which means currently you just have tests sitting in your test, surveys, and pools area that aren't being used or not a graded activity in the course. And so usually if it says no, you can go here, you can usually delete that test pretty quickly without causing any issues in your course, because it's nothing that students are using at the moment. It's just kind of taking up space. And then it's kind of important. One of the reasons we've kind of emphasized this a lot lately, particularly for the course entry quiz, and when you find multiple iterations of that, is because of the adaptive release. We get several phone calls recently, and probably every semester, I would imagine, where there are multiple versions of the course entry quiz in the course, and the grade center might not have been cleaned out, so they've set up an adaptive release on an assessment that students can't see, and so it can cause some issues. And so managing this area after the course copy can really be helpful for you for a number of reasons, and something that you want to make sure that you look at after the course copy is done. Another area to look at this, so test, surveys, and pools. We're looking at tests now. Pools are another item. If you use test pools, they often get duplicated a lot as well. We see this a lot, probably most frequently in courses that might have an attendance quiz or a syllabus verification quiz that they take every semester and it doesn't really change. We'll often see that pool get duplicated a lot, and you can kind of manage this the same way by whether or not it's being used at the moment. And typically you can tell if it's not being used by whether or not you have the option to delete the pool from this pools area. If you don't have the option to delete, that means it's tied to an active assessment in the course. Other things that you'll want to look through if you're not familiar, you've heard us talk about the content collection, but you'll want to look through the content collection of your course to see if you have any old content that you're not using right now that has just been kind of copied. If you haven't had the option to delete some question pools, then it might be Sue that that they were being used in active assessment, so you just might not have had a duplication problem when you did the course copy. So this is your content collection is a place to look through content to see if it's currently attached or tied to any content in your course, and if not, this is another really easy way to check and see if you have any content that you can kind of use to clean out of your course as well. One other item that you want to look at after the Grade Center, after the copy, is the Grade Center, and whether or not you cleaned out any unused columns. Course Entry Quiz is a good example of that one as well, because we have a new version of the Course Entry Quiz that's created in all of our courses. A Grade Center column is often already created for that in each of our course shells, or not often, is always created for that in our course shells. So when we do a course copy from a previous semester, and we copy test surveys and pools and the Grade Center information, we often copy that particular Grade Center column as well. And so after you do a course copy, you just want to make sure that you've removed any links to assignments and tests that they don't need, but also look in the Grade Center to make sure that those columns are removed as well. And that'll help with students not being confused about seeing columns in the Grade Center that are not associated with any assignments as well. All right. Okay. So I'm going to jump, if we have any more questions about the course copying, I'm going to jump a little bit into doing imports and exporting a course, so we can look at that process as well. Okay. So the process of importing or exporting a course and then importing it into another course is not too terribly different from what you do with a course copy. There's a few different nuances, if you will, but it's not too terribly different. There are some benefits to doing it in that it's a way to copy your content and share your content without having to give a lot of other people access to your course, because it produces a zip file that will allow you to share that with them. But we'll go through all of those steps. The difference between a cartridge and a package: a course cartridge is usually something that's provided by a publisher. A package is usually just it's the Blackboard language for the zip file that you load into the course typically. If you guys look at me 1 second, I'm going to delete my development shell so I can demonstrate the process of doing the export and import for you. So we'll have a clean slate to get started. Okay. So to export a file, you start off from the same place, or to export your course, you start off from the same place, which is, of course, this course management tool menu with the packages and utilities area, and you're going to select the option to export or archive the course. And what you're going to do up here, you're going to select the export package option. All right. So you're going to, in the file attachments area, you're going to want to copy links and include copies of the files in the course default directory, and then the files outside of the course default directory, you're going to want to also include copies of the files outside of default directory as well. I'd encourage you with the export file, when you're doing this, you'll see an option when you do this to calculate the size, because there will be some, if you have a particularly large course, which we've seen some over the last, through the summer really, there will be some export and import limitations. So if your course is too large, you may run into an issue trying to do this. This course is going to be fine. We're not going to have any issues. So from this area, you can, again, this part of it should look pretty similar to what you see when you did the course entry, or excuse me, the course copy before. You've got all of the items that you added to the course menu, and then your announcements, blogs, contact information, the same settings for the discussion board that you might want to copy or not copy, depending on what you're working from. And then of course you'll have the settings for availability. Again, that's still going to be something that's managed by IT, so that's not something that you'll really be able to control. So I'll uncheck that one. And then test surveys and pools and wikis. So a lot of the content, pretty much all of the content that you do in an import, it's gonna behave or should behave the same way when you're importing as it did in a course copy. So that would include the availability of assignments or announcements or anything like that in the course, calendar dates. All of those things that you're keeping in the front of your mind when you're doing a course copy, you're going to want to make sure are in the forefront when you're exporting a course as well. So after I've selected the content and the materials that I want to do a course copy of or an import of, I'm going to click the Submit button. And again, you'll see this purple bar pop up and you'll get an email when it is complete. Okay. So after you get the email, you'll get a link in the email that'll tell you to go to back to your course to look at the package that was just exported, and the package is just the zip file that was created when you ran this process. And so you'll click, you would go back to Packages and Utilities, and you would click the same link or select the same link, export, and then what you should see here is a list of any export files that you've created from this course. And so the one that I just created is down here on the bottom. And so what I'll want to do is download that file, and you'll see it pop up down here in the menu. Okay. Okay. And so after I have downloaded that file, I then want to go into the course that I am importing that package into. So I'm going to go back into my development shell and go to the Packages and Utilities area again. And then I'm going to select the option to import package. And then this button up here that says Import Package, you're only going to be able to import it into this course, so you don't have to worry about entering the course menu there. Or excuse me, the course ID there. And then from this area, you'll select the Browse My Computer. And here we go. Okay. And you'll select the export file, and so you should see the zip file pop up here in the selected area. From here on the import section as well, you can choose to import all of the content into it or not. Whatever you would like to import into the course, you can. Test surveys and pools, the discussion board. And then once you've selected the material that you want to import into the course, you're going to click the Submit button once again, and you'll see It's taking a second, but once the package has imported, you'll see the content populate into the course menu, or into the course. Okay. And so just like with the course copy, you'll see the blue bar that pops up that tells you when it's complete and whether or not there were any errors. And so if there are any errors in it and you want to see what they are, you'll be able to access it from the little menu that pops up. And it'll take you to the import file. And again, the one I just imported is right here. So I'll click on that and it'll show me what issues were. And it looks like a couple of these were related to course menu items being named different things. And so just kind of goes to tell you, again, if those course menu items, just like when you're doing a course copy, it's going to behave the same way. So yeah, Mike, you make a good point. It is helpful for archival. Really the benefit to doing the one import over doing our course copy is that you can share a zip file with some of your colleagues. If you have adjuncts, you can share a zip file with them and import it into a course that way. So it might save you some steps on having to do school dudes to get access to all of the courses that you need to do course copies. But that would probably be one other benefit. But course copy is probably the easiest. Just the one benefit would be that you could share a zip file as compared to having to get access to all of the courses in Blackboard. Okay. Okay. So the things that you're going to look for again after you do an import or into a course are really going to be they're going to be the same items that you would want to make sure you looked for after you did a course copy. So information can get duplicated, and just being kind of aware of what you're copying, and know and try to kind of prevent that and manage the size and organization of our courses a little bit better. You can also see when I did this particular import that a lot of things on the menu did get copied either because the name was different, slightly different, and things like that. One thing I didn't mention earlier, which you all might have noticed when we did this, is because you all will probably notice when you do a course copy or an import, is that your collaboration menu item will also probably get duplicated if you have changed that in any particular way. So if you use collaboration-discussions or instead of just calling it collaboration, you'll also notice that will probably get duplicated because you've edited the name in some way. But yeah, the recommendation for copying or exporting, as Emily said, is to use the select all and then deselect areas that you don't want to copy. So that might be announcements, particularly if you use a lot of announcements, or certain tests. You can also use import and export. Sometimes you can use the export feature to export individual tests as well instead of doing full course copies or full copies of all the tests. It can be used for individual pieces like that as well, which can sometimes be easier than copying all the tests. You can just copy and share individual tests as needed. So, all right. Any other questions? Those are kind of the big points on that. And the big things to just keep in mind with course copying in general is to just know how things are supposed to behave when they do a course copy, and what to look for. So of course, make sure your course menu items you're not duplicating content within those course menu items, so avoid copying things that are pre-populated, like student support, course entry quizzes, things like that. And make sure you look through those things like tests and course content and things like that after you've done a course copy to make sure that you're not duplicating. What causes content collections with multiple imported folders like that? Emily, I'm not sure if you have a better answer to that. My assumption would be that when you do a course copy from semester to semester, it'll often copy the entire content. And so when you do a copy from the spring 2018 into fall 2018, you'll see both of those folders. And then, okay, I was right. And you'll see each of the course copy occurrences in the content collection, more or less. How do you know what you can keep under your content collection after you copy from a dev shell into your new course, and what you can get rid of? Yeah, I think Emily did a good job of answering that. We would recommend that you use your development shell to prepare your course pretty much entirely, and then copy the course into each semester from that development shell. So if you don't have a development shell, you can usually just put in a school dude really quick, and IT will get it taken care of for you. An easy thing to do is just delete it or have it deleted at the end of the semester, and you can kind of start fresh with each course that you need. Several years ago, Mark's asking, several years ago, we were advised to be careful with using course copy. Emily, you might have a better answer for me. I'm not sure here when I was here when that advisement came out. Okay. Mm-hmm. I know a couple of years ago there was an issue, or around the time I started, there was an issue. Yeah, like Emily said, when course copy was duplicating content when it wasn't supposed to. And so we wound up with several courses that had many tests in them that caused some issues. I think it actually it slowed Blackboard down quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah, doing a course copy, we have a question there about soft chalk. It's perfectly safe if you use soft chalk. The thing that you have to remember is to make sure that you're synchronizing the the soft chalk lessons after you've done a course copy. So if you don't know how to do that, I can actually show you how to do that real quickly. I'll share my screen with you again. What you do for that is from your course tools menu, again, you're going to select the course tools and scroll down to where it says soft chalk synchronized copied content, and then you're going to just click this synchronize button, and that will sync all of the lessons up so your students can see them. If you forget to do that step, then students will get an error message when they try to see the soft chalk lessons, because it'll still be linking back to the old course. But after that, otherwise you should be fine. Any other questions? Great. I'm glad you got something out of it, Sue. Yes, please do call the help desk if you need help. We'll be glad to walk you through any of this or send you more information if you need it.